Hey everyone, it's Jacqueline for Pixie Dust PhD. If you're watching this pretty close to when it uploads, I want to wish you a very happy new year. I know the start of the year is when a lot of folks look at their budget, so I thought it would be fun/horrifying to go over how much we spent on our recent fall 2021 trip down to both Universal and Walt Disney World. Stay tuned. As a quick recap, we were on vacation for 2 full weeks, so we did know it would cost quite a lot. I won't go through every item line by line, but feel free to pause the video if you need to, and if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments down below and I'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks so much to everyone who has already liked the video and subscribed to the channel. I really appreciate your support. Alright, let's get into it. This first category of travel and transit was very specific to our trip and may not apply to you. We did end up flying down to Orlando. Although we live in the Washington, D.C. metro area, we did end up driving down to North Carolina. This is where my partner's parents live. First, we hadn't seen them in a while due to the pandemic, and also they offered to watch our dog while we were on vacation. Because it was 2 full weeks, this was the best option in our mind. 1, because we saved a lot of money on dog boarding, but 2, also just because we know that my partner's parents love our dog and would take really good care of her, so it was a very big weight off our chests. So we ended up flying out of the Raleigh-Durham airport into MCO, and then again back from MCO to Raleigh-Durham where we got our dog, my partner's car, and then drove back home. Airfare from RDU is generally not very expensive. This is obviously going to be very different depending on where you live. If you're coming over from like Canada or the UK, your airfare is going to cost a lot more. On the flip side, if you live close enough to drive comfortably, then you won't even have airfare to consider. You will of course have gas though. We went down to Raleigh on a Friday and our flight didn't leave until Saturday, so we did pay for an airport hotel that night. This may also not apply to you. And we had travel bank credits from flights in 2020 that we never ended up taking for pandemic reasons, so we did apply those to our airfare. So what we actually paid for the airfare for this trip wasn't that much because we had sort of prepaid for a lot of the airfare like a year and a half ago. We did rent a car. I prefer to have a rental car when we go to Disney World, especially if we're there for longer than like 3 or 4 days. If you do not rent a car or you're driving down and you will have your own car, this obviously won't apply to you. And then there are, of course, car-related expenses like gas that we had to refill the tank for before we returned it. And we did end up driving to Boo Bash before we were staying on Disney property, so we had to pay the $25 to park at the TTC. Depending on how you calculate this, whether you want to take the full amount of the flights that we took, or if you want to take the amount we actually paid just for this trip, so minus the travel bank credit, we spent between $700 or $800 on this portion of the trip. Those costs were spread out between April and September. Next are what I would call non-necessities, so these are definitely things you don't necessarily need. We opted to buy magic bands, which if you have a Bluetooth-enabled cell phone, you really don't need that. We purchased Memory Maker. I think it's totally worth it, but not everyone feels the same, and if you want to save close to $200, that's an obvious place to look. We bought a few things at Target and Publix, water, snacks, things like that, and also we did make a quick run to the Beach Club Marketplace, mostly to buy some things that I had forgotten to pack, like Neosporin, but we also did pick up a little bit of wine while we were there, so that was a little more expensive than just the non-necessities had to be. And then I don't really ever buy souvenirs, so we don't budget for souvenirs, but I did buy a few things for my nibbling, so t-shirt, PJ set, hoodie, things like that. We popped into Blizzard Beach for a couple hours and we did rent a large size locker there just to make sure we didn't have to worry about our stuff or lug it around. This really wasn't necessary, especially since we were only there for a little bit of time, but since we wanted to do the lazy river, we didn't just want to like leave our things on a beach chair and hope it would be okay. I guess we could have left it in the car, but yeah, the locker it worked very well. It was $15. You probably don't necessarily need it. Overall, we spent a little under $300 on things we arguably didn't need. I'm glad we bought them, but if you're looking for places to save money, these are obvious places to have some savings. Especially Memory Maker, it's kind of expensive. On to things we couldn't really avoid, so theme park tickets. We bought 4-day, 2-park tickets to Universal, so these did not grant us access to Volcano Bay, their water park. We could go back and forth from islands and studios as much as we wanted though. These were about $640. We purchased them through Undercover Tourist. In the past, and actually much earlier in 2021 when I was planning out this trip, Universal has had a buy 2 park day tickets, get 2 days free, and we've done that. It is a little bit cheaper. You're obviously getting 2 free days. So I was hoping to get that, but by the time we felt very confident we were going on the trip, that deal just wasn't available anymore, so we did have to go with the standard 4-day park to park, or their version of park hopper tickets. Then we bought 10-day park hopper tickets at Walt Disney World. Again, we bought these via Undercover Tourist and it cost about $1,200. This is tickets for 2 people, by the way. And while we didn't necessarily need to do this, I think it fit well into our plans, we ended up buying tickets to Boo Bash. This was for a Tuesday in September, so it was one of the cheaper options available. Not the absolute cheapest, but you know, it wasn't Halloween night, and for 2 people it was about $275. So on tickets alone, we spent about $1,000 per person. This is more than I'm used to paying for tickets. That being said, we don't normally buy 10-day park hoppers. We don't normally buy 4-day park-to-parks at Universal, and we often are not buying hard ticket events for an after-hours party. I think it was nice to get the bulk of this cost though done in May, so that 10-day park hopper ticket to Walt Disney World. By the time vacation actually came around, I wasn't thinking about that $1,200 anymore. It had been long paid off, so it's a good weight off my chest. In my opinion, I just like to spread out the costs if I'm able to. Now, of course, our main cost is going to be food and drink. For many people, your main cost will be lodging. We'll get to that for me in a bit, but because of Disney Vacation Club, it's a little bit different. We arrived down to Orlando and went to Universal midday Saturday, so we had half day Saturday, all day Sunday, all day Monday, and half a day Tuesday. We did 2 instances of Orlando's magical dining. That's essentially their restaurant week, but it lasts a lot longer than a week. This iteration was $37 per person for a 3-course meal. In both instances, we did opt to have wine with our dinners. That's why it's a little more expensive than just the $37 per person plus tax plus tip. I will say I think Breadbox was the winner here in terms of quality and quantity per price. It was very delicious, very filling, and really not that expensive. If you're looking for ways to save money, definitely stick with quick service. Don't do sit-down meals. Avoid alcohol. It adds up very quickly. As you can see, we went to a bar, the Velvet Bar Lounge at the Hard Rock, and spent like $60 just on drinks. But overall, over the course of those 4 days, basically, we spent about $500 on food and drink at the Universal Resort property. We had basically 10.5 days at Disney. That's a long time, and we absolutely did fill it with a lot of great food and drink. Now, we went into this vacation knowing it would be a splurge. We booked a lot of fancy meals. We booked a lot of sit-down restaurants. There was multiple instances of signature dining. We weren't shy about buying a bottle of wine instead of just 1 glass, all those things. So there's a lot of ways to cut costs here. And this is far too much to go through line by line, but I just want to touch on a few highlights. Any of these lines with an asterisk means something was up. In most cases, we were out with friends, and so we were buying parts of their meals, they were buying parts of ours. Our friends were pass holders and were entitled to discounts we weren't, but the cast members gave it to us anyway, that sort of thing. So those are a little bit of weird estimates, but if we're going just based on my credit card statement and what I paid, this is what it was. So for example, our Le Cellier total of around $130 was just for my entree and my partner's entree. We did have wine with our meal, but our friend graciously picked that up. I want to quickly plug our dinner at Three Bridges. I thought that it was fantastic, and I know $109 seems like a lot, but that was the price for 2 entrees, a pitcher of sangria, and an appetizer, so really not that bad. As you can see from this list, we had a lot of bites and nibbles from the Food and Wine Festival, and just in general from drinking and eating around the world in Epcot's World Showcase. I can't recommend it enough. It is honestly so fun, especially to do with friends. Satuli Canteen is also such a highlight. That's a quick service restaurant in the Pandora section of Animal Kingdom. For $28, we got the adult-sized cheeseburger pod meal and a beef bowl. It's very delicious and very filling. Honestly, I think it's one of your best options for theme park quick service. We did spend quite a lot at Yachts and Steakhouse. Again, I think that's 2 entrees that are probably around $60 each. We bought a bottle of wine. I'm sure there was an appetizer, tax, tip, all these things. When you do signature dining, it's pretty easy to spend $200, I'm not gonna lie. And finally, our last page of food and drink for Disney. We did have lunch at Kona Cafe. It was about $120. This was for 3 people though. We picked up the tab for one of our friends. Also, I just want to make a general note that over in Epcot, it seemed like some of the restaurants that were owned by external groups, so not owned and operated by Disney, cost a lot more. If you're looking at a relatively common item, something like a Caesar salad or calamari, and you want that item, not necessarily you want to go to a specific restaurant, you may want to browse and look across a lot of different restaurants around the property. Calamari, for example, in the Italy Pavilion at Epcot costs quite a lot more than most of the other places I saw. If you are trying to pinch pennies, it may behoove you to do a little bit of research before you leave, so you know, hey, if I get a craving for Caesar salad or something I typically eat regularly, these are the places that are either convenient location-wise or cheap price-wise. But all in all, like I said, we went into this knowing it would be a luxurious vacation. We definitely were revenge spending. We knew we would spend a lot of money, primarily on food and drink. It ended up being almost $2,500. I maintain that had the dining plan been available and had we been able to purchase that, we would have saved some money, probably not a ton, maybe just a couple $100 max. But yeah, for 10.5 days worth of food for 2 adults who, enjoyed a lot of steaks and enjoyed a lot of wine and good drinks. I mean, I'm not surprised that we spent $2,500 across this time. Your other primary cost, and it may end up being more than food for you, is going to be lodging. While we were in Universal, we split our time between the DoubleTree by Hilton Hotel at the entrance to Universal Orlando Resort and the Loews Royal Pacific Resort. 2 nights at the DoubleTree was about $170, and 1 night at Loews Royal Pacific was about $350. We did also have a rental car, so we paid to park at Loews Royal Pacific for about $30. We were supposed to pay to park at the DoubleTree. They knew we had a car, but I couldn't find the charge anywhere on my credit card, so I don't think it happened. I was very honest about having a car at check-in, and you had to use your room key to move your car in and out of the lot, so they have electronic records of it even. The way I see it, I didn't lie, but I'm not gonna go back and tell them now that I've gone through my credit card statement with a fine-tooth comb that, hey, you forgot to charge me for parking. I think it was supposed to be about $23 a night. We were there for 2 nights, so I would just count on an extra $50 or so to park. We didn't need to splurge and stay on property at Loews Royal Pacific for Universal, but we chose to do that, and it cost money. We definitely paid the price. I'm happy we did it. Again, this was a splurge vacation, but we could have saved and stayed at the DoubleTree the whole time had we wanted. Overall, we're looking at about $550 for 3 nights of hotel accommodations at Universal. I did book these long in advance of our trip, so I actually paid for Royal Pacific all the way back in March. And then for the DoubleTree, I paid a 1-night deposit in April and then paid the rest upon checkout. So this cost was spread out over 6 months. We left Universal on Tuesday and transferred down to a Disney Springs area hotel just for that 1 night. Here we stayed at the Hilton Buena Vista Palace. Now, that room costs about $280. But through our American Express Hilton credit card, we get a $250 rebate per card year for Hilton resorts, which this is one. Even though this hotel room was priced at $280 for the 1 night, because of that $250 rebate, we only ended up paying about $30. And the rate that we booked through also came with free parking, so we didn't have to worry about that. Then the rest of our stay was Disney Vacation Club. So this gets a little tricky when you're talking about how to calculate the costs. When we checked out, I paid them $0.00. Like, I didn't have a bill to pay for the room. But of course, I paid for the contract, we pay annual dues. There's dozens of ways you could decide, well, how much did this actually cost you? We're not gonna go through all of those. If you're of the mindset that the initial purchase price is already done and gone, we've paid it off, and annual dues we pay every January, done and gone, you know, whether or not we vacation that year or we wait till the next year, etc., then I guess it's $0.00, and that's how much it cost. For the sake of time, though, I'll also entertain the one other most common option, in my opinion, which is to assess the cost of your Disney Vacation Club room per your annual dues. So all of our DVC nights together cost 138 points. My contract is 90 points. We used all 90 of the 2021 use year points, and then we used half of our 2022 use year points. When I booked this, and currently as of the day I'm filming this, though it could change literally any time now, there is a 50% borrowing limit. Typically, you can borrow 100% of your next use year's points, but we were limited. That's 135 points total between the 2 use years. We needed 138 points to book the exact rooms that we wanted, so we did end up purchasing 3 one-time use points. For now, one-time use points that you purchase through Disney Vacation Club are $19 per point, so $57 for those. Done, dusted. That is a set cost. The cost of annual dues for the 45 points we borrowed from the 2022 use year are also pretty straightforward to figure out. There's 45 points, 2022 annual dues are set. For me at Bay Lake Tower, it's a little over $7 per point. So for those 45 points, we're talking $300 and change. The 90 points we use for 2021 are a little more complicated. You can use the same logic where 2021 annual dues were set at $6.90 per point, times 90, there's your total. But in my case, we didn't actually end up paying that much. There are 2 factors here. First, there was a rebate given to all of the owners because of the pandemic-related closure. So to begin with, it wasn't actually $6.90 per point. And then second, I ended up opening a Disney Rewards Visa credit card, and I charged dues to that. And then if you spent some amount in the first few months of having the credit card, you got a $250 rebate. I opened this credit card specifically with paying off my dues and getting that rebate in mind, so in my head, it applies to this cost. When factoring in the $250 rebate from the credit card, as well as the small rebate from the pandemic-related closures that were assessed, the actual cost per point ended up being much closer to $3.75 than $6.90. So depending on how you look at this, annual dues for the points I used out of my contract was anywhere from about $650 to like $940. As you can see, between the various ways you can calculate the cost of a Disney Vacation Club stay, as well as that credit, the $250 credit we get from our Hilton American Express credit card on select Hilton resorts, which the Hilton Buena Vista Palace is one, there is a lot of ways you can calculate the total for our lodging costs. Your total cost could be anywhere from a little over $1,800 to as little as not even $650. It just depends on what you want to count. Including the full cost for the DVC dues for the points I used from the 2021 and 2022 use years obviously raises the costs. Similarly, if you do not have the Hilton American Express that gives you that $250 credit or rebate on certain resorts, and so you wouldn't be using that, and you want to include that cost, that of course also raises the overall total. I don't particularly think there is a correct way to do this or not, but I wanted to present to you a smattering of options as you're thinking about your budget for your Central Florida vacation. To me, personally, I probably wouldn't count DVC as part of this cost because it's not actually a bill I was handed. It's not something that came out of my credit card because of this vacation. We paid the initial price for the contract. That's done. That money is gone. And we pay dues every year, whether or not we're vacationing that year, or staying DVC, or transferring points to the cruise line, or whatever it is. The costs associated with the points to me are set costs that we're just incurring, kind of like rent. We just have to pay it. And it's not necessarily like per vacation do I think about it. Especially because dues we're paying in January, and in this case, we didn't vacation until September. And for the points we borrowed, we haven't even paid the dues for those yet, honestly. Definitely not when we were vacationing. So yeah, it's just a yearly annual cost in my mind, and it's not necessarily set to this. So I would say for me, when I think about the lodging costs directly that came out of this vacation, I consider it more to be like the $500 range than the $1,600 range, but you do you. And also, obviously, if you're not staying Disney Vacation Club or if you're renting points, you have to pay for that. You're staying at a general hotel, your lodging cost is just going to be a lot more than this. Even when accounting for those annual dues costs of Disney Vacation Club, we stayed for 10 nights for about $1,000, so $100 a night. You're going to be hard pressed to find $100 a night in the Disney World area. I don't think it's possible to do on property, and even off property, it's difficult. As a general tip, and this of course will vary depending on the length of your trip, the size of your party, if you're going to stay on or off property, but I personally would always budget around $2,000 for lodging, and if you come in under, fantastic, that's money in your pocket. If you do have a larger travel party, or you do want to stay on property and you really want to stay at like a deluxe resort, you may want to budget for more. All things considered, I presented to you a lot of ways you could calculate these costs. Some of the costs were set, like tickets, you just do have to pay for that. But Disney Vacation Club, how do you want to calculate that? Do you want to count the rebates that I got on our flights, on credit card statements from opening a new credit card, on that Hilton Resort credit that we get for having the Hilton credit card? That all adds up to hundreds of dollars, so it does kind of make a difference in the end if you count it or not. Depending on how you do decide to count things, we spend somewhere between maybe a little under $6,000 to even potentially $8,000, so it is quite a wide range there. And then there's all those optional costs that apply to us but may not apply to you, like are you going to get a rental car? That was $400. Are you going to buy Memory Maker? That's about $200. Are you going to buy snacks and stuff at the stores? Like, you could pack these things instead. That's definitely an option. 2 weeks is definitely a long vacation, and we were absolutely extravagant in many of our dining choices. Your vacation does not have to cost this much, but if you want to sort of ball out like we did for 2 straight weeks, it's gonna be $5,000 or more most likely. I mentioned this before, but I do think spreading those costs out over 5 or 6 months is helpful. Of course, most of those costs are going to come during when you travel, especially for us because it's a lot of food and drink. We did very purposely save up quite a lot and pretty aggressively before this vacation to make sure that we didn't feel limited and we could do what we wanted and buy the bottle of wine if we felt like it. We maintain a savings account at a completely separate bank just for vacation-related expenses, and even with dropping this $4,500 to $7,000 or so, it wasn't fully depleted by any means, so this is something we prioritize in our savings to make sure that we can have a good time. But if you've been watching the vlogs wondering like, how the heck much did this cost? It was a lot, I'm not gonna lie, it was a lot. This is not the kind of vacation we typically take by any means, but I had a wonderful time. We made a lot of great memories, we got to see a lot of awesome friends, and I'm really happy with it. And certainly while we're not at our break-even point yet for Disney Vacation Club by any means, 10 nights at those places would have cost a ton. So, you know, it's an investment in that sorts wherein it's nice to be able to go and stay 10 nights and pay, you know, $100 per night, basically via annual dues, instead of, I don't even want to think about how much those rooms would have cost in the cash rate. That alone probably would have been at least $4,000 had we stayed in those same resorts, especially because we stayed 6 nights at Bay Lake Towers, so that would have been 6 nights at the Contemporary. I think it would have been even more than that. I didn't price this out before we left, but I wouldn't be surprised if staying 1 night at Beach Club, 3 nights at Boardwalk, 6 nights at the Contemporary would have been over $6,000, for example. So anyway, this was not a lesson in, how to go to Disney World on a tight budget. This was a realistic look at, well, if you don't necessarily set a budget and you decide you can spend what you want, that's how much it's gonna cost. If you don't drink alcohol or you only drink it very sparingly, you will come out a lot cheaper. We spent a lot of money on bottles of wine and cocktails for sure. And if you don't want to go to the parks every day and you buy smaller tickets, that will also save you a lot of money up front. We did have a ticket for literally every day we were down there, and actually an extra ticket if you count Boo Bash, because we went to Universal that morning and Boo Bash that night. There are ways to save money, and we could potentially talk about that in a future video, but at the end of the day, a vacation in general is relatively expensive, and especially a vacation to theme parks. This is not the same thing as a beach getaway or a weekend in a cabin in the mountains. Those can be very cost-effective vacations. Something like Disney World, I would not put the words cost-effective in front of basically ever. But we knew it would cost a lot and we saved up appropriately beforehand. Like I said, I'm glad for all of the experiences that we had. Of course, I wish it had cost less, but it is what it is. I hope this look into how much we spent on our vacation has been helpful to you. Like I said before, if you do have any questions, feel free to leave those in the comments down below and I'll get back to you. We can also chat about this or really anything Disney World outside of YouTube over on Twitter and Instagram. You'll find me at PixieDustPhD. We are once again aggressively saving up in our vacation account for future adventures, but I don't know that we'll have a vacation as lavish as this one for quite a while. I hope the rest of your day is magical, and we'll see you real soon at PixieDustPhD.